Welcome, everybody. If you are watching us live, it means you were just scrolling through your Facebook page and thankfully you came across us. This is Carolina Quesada, and I am with the Nonprofit Partnership and would love to welcome you to another story, another segment of our ongoing series called Our Stories, Our Time. And in this series, we interview nonprofit leaders to understand how organizations are navigating the challenges of current times and to hear really from them directly about their successes and their breakthroughs. Now, before I introduce our guest today, the Nonprofit Partnership wishes to thank our sponsor, the Port of Long Beach, for generously supporting this series. So again, if you are watching us live, we invite you to engage with us online, chat, say hi to our special guest. If you want to drop in with some questions, please feel free to put that all in the comment box. And with that, I will introduce Paul Kaminski, who is the CEO of the Long Beach City College Foundation. So Paul, welcome. This is so exciting. We've been looking forward to having you.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here. I love Long Beach and I've been in the community since 1966. So getting to work here and getting to work next to you guys, actually.
That's right, we're neighbors.
Yeah, we are neighbors, and yeah, no, it's been an incredible 2.5 years that I've been here. Completely enjoyed it. A lot of work, but it's been great because it's my community. And
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, it has already been an incredible 2.5 years, mind you. And so you and I were just chatting for a little bit right before we went live, and yes, you actually joined right before the pandemic broke out. You joined the LBCC family, the foundation family. But let's get to know a little bit more about you. Tell
Sure.
us more about your background, you know, where you've been spending a lot of time in your professional career.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I started out as a teacher and a coach way back when, and then kind of segue into about an 18-year career with UPS. And then I went back to teaching and coaching. And during that point, that was actually at St. John Bosco High School. The president asked me to do development work. And I really hadn't even thought about it up to that point. And so I kind of looked at it, studied it a little bit, and it really looked like it was going to be a lot of fun and interesting. I didn't realize how much work it was going to be. But I thought it would be kind of an interesting, I felt like my skill set kind of spoke to it. So I did that and then ended up at St. John Bosco doing development work till about 2010. And then I went to Providence High School in Burbank, which was part of the Providence St. Joseph Health System. And I ended up at St. Mary out in Apple Valley, was a VP of their hospital for about 5 years and did development out in the high desert. And then kind of made my way back to St. Jude in Fullerton, which is part of the Providence St. Joseph Health System, and then did a brief stint with Operation Smile, and then got an opportunity to come to LBCC, and it was a job that I had been looking at for years, hoping that it would come open, and it did. I actually went through 2 rounds, almost got it the first time, didn't, and then had a second round at it, and then got the position about 2.5 years ago. So. Very grateful to be here. Very grateful to put my heart and soul into something in a community that I've grown up in and that I feel really confident about. So
yeah, and you're one of the brave souls who said, "Let me give this development work a try."
I know.
And guess what? You never looked back. You never looked back. I bet. Just been, growing in the field, growing in the area, and I'm sure there's a lot to be said about. All the different places and spaces you've been in and the seats that you've been able to hold and development, as most of us know, is really about that relationship building and being able to tell, the full story of what's really going on and the impact. So how interesting that you've been able to do that, with different kinds of stakeholder groups and communities.
Well, I think the key for me is I've always really tapped into the mission of the organization, and I'm like one of those all-in people. So if I'm in, I'm like fully vested into the mission, and it just becomes part of who I am. And so I've never felt like I've had to like fake what I'm doing, because I'm part of an organization. I just need to do this. I never felt like that. It just felt like that this is something that I believe in, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And so it was always, I never looked at it as like I'm trying to sell somebody something. Basically in fundraising, we're allowing people to realize something great with their resources, and we really allow them to speak with their heart, and money is just a conduit for good, right? And so, if you can tap into that, and you hit on it already, and it's the relationships, and everybody wants to do good. I mean, I firmly believe that. And if people have resources, they want to put that to work, and so when you build that relationship, you find out what they're passionate about, and everybody's passionate about something. Everybody's had an experience that resonates with them. So, but you have to spend time with people. You have to build those relationships. You have to understand. And so that's kind of where my life and the way I grew up. My dad was a philanthropist as well, and didn't have a lot of money, but he always made sure he chipped in wherever he was at to make things happen. So I kind of learned from that, from the ground up. And that's just kind of, I've been blessed. I've had an amazing philanthropic career that I never even dreamed I would have, or even thought about when I was young. So
yeah, philanthropy, development, this whole world takes you to places, like you said, whoa, you just never imagined. You look back, and you said you're an all-in kind of guy, and LBCC is so lucky really to have that approach, because it especially given the last few years, boy, it's taken that. And shifting now, and really looking at the foundation, Paul, help us understand a little bit more. I know on your website you have a nice little story about when the foundation started, but help us understand really, where is the foundation now? What are those activities and those areas that you're really primarily focused on?
Sure. Yeah, the foundation was founded in 1978, and Beverly O'Neill is actually on like the first charter, and so that was kind of cool. And I've got to meet Beverly several times, and she's just a wonderful person. But that was the same year I graduated high school, so it's kind of funny to see that 1978. It's like, whoo, and then where we are now. I think we've been very proactive, especially during COVID. When I think a lot of fundraising got stalled, we were very bold. We jumped into a campaign. I kind of decided that as a group that to get into a campaign, and then to work on operations, to do everything within the confines of a campaign. That way we all have a rallying point. And so I think working in the hospital system for 8 years and seeing that level of sophistication, I think I've been able to kind of bring that to the LVCC Foundation. So we're doing a lot more relationship building. It's not a transactional foundation. Really, we're looking to have transformation, and transformation is built on relationship, and you can't arrive that for just exchanging things. You have to really get to people's hearts, and that's kind of what we're doing now. And so, I mean, I think we're the only community college foundation that actually has a director of athletic fundraising. If you look up and down the state,
wow.
I think we're the only ones that are doing that right now. We also have a director, and that's Gina Mascaro. We also have a director, Tanya Adolph, who's working directly with the president of the school to build the president's circle, to do community outreach, to open up the alumni association to everybody. Because I think the unique thing about LVCC, my entire family was touched by LVCC, but none of us are alums, right? It's a community place. All my kids did swim lessons, early childhood development. My son did here. I did some of my language courses here, and things, and swam here. And so I think we've looked at it from that perspective. It's not just about alums and who has gone here. It's really about everybody. And you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in the community that doesn't have a tie to LVCC. And so that's our mentality here, that everybody can be part of what we're doing. And so what we're doing is very student focused. So we jumped into a feasibility study, and jumped into a campaign. During COVID, we were gonna give a reason to rally behind our students. And in that process, we found out a whole lot of stuff, and it
Yeah.
really changed the direction of how we think about fundraising in our foundation.
Well, and this is amazing. We shortly after the pandemic broke out, some months after, we hosted a series of conversations and panels, and you actually served on one of them.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember leading up to that conversation, you shared with everybody all of the deep work that the foundation had invested in to really learn what is beneath the surface. What are we not yet understanding about how the impact is real, the pandemic is really impacting
Right.
lives. But tell us more about what you found out and what were those critical points of information that for you as the head of the foundation, you just realized, whoa, we really
Yeah.
have to do things differently here.
Well, it really started before the pandemic. We had a student that was like a straight A student, but she had lost her job and she needed to register for class, and she couldn't because she had back tuition due. And so we got a call from somebody that recognized the situation.
Mhm.
And so I was just new here. And so I said, oh, we must have a student emergency fund or something. And we didn't. And so one of my staff members actually at that time, and I'm gonna call her out because she retired, Nancy Yoho, wrote $1,000 check that day. We turned it around, went over to registration, and that student was able to stay in school. And then we looked at that account and we said, wow, we need to grow this, right? And then the pandemic broke out. And then so we created this, from that, it was a student emergency. Then we made it student emergency and basic needs fund. And then we found out that there was so many students that didn't have adequate
Yeah.
computer access, not very good internet access, much less have a computer, but also food issues and housing issues and transportation issues. And I think for a long time, people felt at the community college level that, oh, you give a student tuition or you give them a scholarship, and oh, they should be fine. Well, oftentimes community college students have a lot more factors going on in their life than a normal student who may just go right from here to a 4-year and have all those other, wraparound needs taken care of in their tuition. That's different. LBCC students have a lot of challenges, not all of them, but a lot of them do. And we weren't speaking to that before. And so a lot of LBCC students, if they had a challenge that was outside of tuition, maybe their car broke down, they didn't have money to fix it, they would drop out of school. We would never hear about that. And so when the pandemic hit, we started changing our message about that. And so we had a lot of students that we helped. We raised about $500,000 in there. I think we ended up donating about 200 computers, Chromebooks to students, gifting them those and hotspots. The school was doing a loaner program as well. But during that whole process, we did not turn away one student. I don't think the school turned away any students that needed help. I'm talking about rent. I'm talking about utilities. I'm talking about fixing a car. It
A
changed.
whole slew of expenses, different types.
We provided refrigeration for both food pantries on both campuses so we could do fresh food. We partnered with, and the school expanded their basic needs program. We have a homeless associates group here that was working with our homeless students as well. I mean, it made us look completely different and it made us look for the future too. And that's kind of the campaign. Okay, what's the future going to look like? We don't know. And so the only way we can be prepared for that is to create endowments and funding mechanisms that can live long into the future so that when emergencies or different things come along, that we can respond to them. And so, it changed everything.
So you shifted pretty quickly from wow, the need is coming, the need is here, and it's coming fast and furious. And quickly you reorganized to make sure that you were raising money to establish these different, funds or to contribute to existing funds. And then the thought and the strategy went to, so where are we taking this now? What
Right.
has to happen in order for us to sustain perhaps even a greater level of giving? Um, Take us down that journey a little bit, Paul. What did happen in order for you to really start to look at what the future, held for the foundation?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was based in our feasibility study. We were able to interview about 40 community members, and we really talked about all these things. And the importance of those things actually surfaced with a lot of our donors. They were concerned about all these things,
Hmm.
but they hadn't really been asked in this kind of formal way before. And so we really looked at that, and student emergency and basic needs and workforce development
Hmm.
and the trades and all these things were really important to donors. And so we just changed our message and really started talking about it more. I met with a lot of people, and it was just kind of a shift. When you have to bring donors along, right? You can't just make a change and not message it or bring them along.
Hmm.
So we messaged it in social media, we messaged it in emails, we messaged it wherever we could that the landscape has changed. And so we brought people along. Not everybody has a comfort level at the same pace, right? So
Right.
you have to invest
That's right.
time, but you can't invest if you don't have the resources and staffing to do that, right? So we got lucky. We were able to hire 5 new people during this period, and we have a great team. And they, a couple of them are LBCC alums. They live the experience. They can tell the story. They believe the
Right.
story, and so and a lot of it, most everybody has been local. They know they know it. They know the story, and so that's kind of how we did it. It was very organic, to be
Hmm.
truthful, but it was a messaging. We have to message this because it's too important not to.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
and earlier you made a point about how the structure in many ways really is not mirroring what may be a typical, community college foundation structure. It's really based, I think, in on other kinds of models or approaches. Tell us more about that, and the again, clearly the impetus is to meet the need, and to have
sure.
to reshift and reorganize around is what we have really going to take us into the future and where we need to go.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of looking at that and coming from the hospital system where things are a little bit more sophisticated and they have more positions and things, but you're never going to get to that level. But how could you scale that back and
Hmm.
have multi, I like to call them hybrid positions. So like we have marketing and social media, and public relations as a position. We have campaigns and alumni and something else as a position. We have athletic development, which is a big opportunity in there. So that's a position. We develop stewardship and retention. Well, our database person, Cindy McKay, took that on. So everybody's doing hybrid. Nobody's doing like I didn't hire when people either retired or left. I didn't hire the same position back.
I
It's an
see.
opportunity to create a hybrid position,
Right.
whereas maybe the hospital system or a university, those would all be individual positions. Well, maybe we're combining those into one position. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we're doing bits of it. And then the strategy was, how do we get our board now to create committees around each staff member to extend their influence in those areas? So then it's recruiting board members who are marketing folks, or recruiting board members who are sports folks, or recruiting board members who are alums that can help out in
Right.
that. Changes the dynamic of your board as
And
well.
there's dedicated staff support to then continue to drive some of those strategies forward, right?
Right,
Depending on how boards are, or the committee is identifying those priorities.
right.
And so far, that's proving to be effective. You are out there. I mean, the foundation is currently, I know we were also talking about the campaign. I don't want to get too ahead of
Yeah,
myself,
yeah,
but it is, that structure is really driving a lot of where the foundation is today,
right.
and the kinds of relationships that you're really grooming in the community.
Right. Yeah, and I think a big, a lot of kudos goes out to my board too, because our board is quite extensive, and it's been the who's who of Long Beach over the years. And it's been kind of the same fundraising structure for a long time, and so they've allowed me to really do all this. They've never told me no. So, it's like I've been able to move forward
Hmm.
with their blessing. And I haven't I'm not the Lone Ranger, right? I believe in getting school leadership on board,
Hmm.
and then getting board on board, and trustees as well. And then you get them behind you, and then you go forward. You don't do it the other way, right? So you kind of do the work behind the scenes, build the relationships, have a vision, get the team together and get buy-in from the team. I believe in buy-in. I'm a former coach. No one player, no one coach wins.
Right.
It's always a collective, and it's only a collective if everybody has buy-in, right? So, and everybody needs to have their great seat on the bus and all going in the same direction. And then and then it's fun. Then you're not bumping heads with anybody. You're just going forward, and we've had that luxury. And so I give my board a lot of kudos.
No, that's great. And in order to make that work, to your point, I mean, you need a great coach, right? Or a great, kind of orchestra conductor, if we want to use a different kind of metaphor,
Yeah,
to make sure that everything is happening in symphony, and synchronizing.
right.
So, Paul, what does this mean then for where the foundation might be in the next couple of years, in the next 3 years? I mean, there's a lot riding, on the shoulders of the foundation's leadership and this vision that you're
Right.
driving forward. So, give us kind of an insider look on what might be coming down the pike in the next couple of years.
Sure. Yeah, we're currently in a campaign that's going to run us to 2027, which is the 100-year anniversary of the school. And so the campaign was designed to speak to that, and to have a rallying point, a finishing point to celebrate. And that's the goal. When we went into the feasibility study initially, we studied $40 million, and everybody's kind of eyes went, wow, that's
Right.
because the biggest one before that was only, was a $6 million. And so to have that kind of leap with no history of being able to do that, there was some apprehension. And the consultants came back and said 40 is a bit of a stretch because there is no history to say, yeah, we can do this. But I think 20 million might be good, and you might get there in 2027. So, well, the good thing is we've already gotten there. We've gotten past there quite a bit, and we raised the goal last month to 30 million. Uh,
Wow.
so
Congratulations.
yeah, so we kind of jumped ahead. So if you were to ask me
Yeah.
in 3 to 4 or 5 years, I want to get to 40 million. That's my goal, because really it's
Wow.
putting those resources in endowments, future giving, estate planning for future students that we don't even know, or future situations that we don't even understand yet. And so if you were to ask me, continual collaboration with our community, with our new athletic facilities, collaboration with other nonprofits, kind of being a hub of collaborative activity, bringing other foundations together to fund multi-collaborative projects that
Wow.
affect other parts, other nonprofits, because there's a lot of smaller nonprofits that may not have the bandwidth, but they're doing
Right.
great things. How do we leverage what they're doing with the assets that we have? Why not bring everybody together and make this something that's really special for the city of Long Beach? And I think that can happen. It's already happening.
And Paul is, I mean, and I guess you're almost already answering the question that's popping up in my mind. I mean, this multi-funder collaborative approach, this kind of different layered approach that you're describing, is that possible in our city? There are opportunities to do that.
I think there is, and we're starting to go down the road right now of something too, that's just came up, and there's several foundations that are interested, and there's several community groups that are interested, and so I think that people need to look at those models more, because when I talk to other nonprofits, oh, we'd like to do this, but we just don't have the resources, or but maybe we do, or access to them, and we could say, hey, we can partner with you and bring that counselor to your nonprofit to work with maybe students who don't know all the avenues at Long Beach City College, or whatever it is. And I think that can happen on multi-levels. So if you're asking me, I would say our athletic fundraising is going gangbusters. We have an amazing collaborative effort with the president of the school, who's in the community a lot. We have an amazing stewardship and retention program going. Our social media is blowing up, and we're kind of a collaborative hub, and we've hit our $40 million goal. I mean, I want it all. I mean, this as a
You're
coach,
like, piece of cake. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. It's just so amazing as you're describing all just the different ways that the foundation has shifted. And when you just sort of stop, and for those of you watching, I highly encourage you to pause and replay some of these parts of the interview, because there's so much to unpack from what you're sharing, Paul, that you're creating a lot of opportunities for these feedback loops. You're not just engaging with the maybe the typical stakeholder of a foundation, the funders, those giving major gifts and whatnot. You're engaging with students, and that's a very particular feedback loop. I know that your foundation is also supporting some staff or faculty initiatives, right, as well, on campus. And then this is really important, I think, to pay attention to what you're sharing with us today. But you have continued conversations with other leaders in the community who may not be considered as the usual suspects kind of in the worlds that you're working in, but you see how important it is to be multidisciplinary, to look at all the different intersections of the work that you're doing and invite, I think, that deeper conversation. I wasn't expecting for our conversation to take that turn, but I'm so pleased that it did.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. A lot of that work we did out at St. Mary in Apple Valley, because the resources were very limited out in the high desert. And so we did a ton of collaborative work. It was hardly ever going alone. It was bringing in city officials or bringing in other nonprofit and doing the work together. And so, when and there's so many smaller nonprofits that are doing amazing work in the city of Long Beach, how do we help them? How do we help them realize their dreams and visions? And you have other foundations who support all these folks, but how do we bring them together and really make something happen that could be special? And so I just think it's another thing that we can do that makes sense,
Yeah.
for the city. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are positioned, and the foundation is a really important, not just anchor institution in our city and in our region, but also who you are, and just your approach to being open and to continuing to explore, honestly, the intersectionality of these problems and these situations that you're seeing through the lives of the students there and the community there at the college. There's so much beneath that, and there's so many systems that impact those situations. So Paul, if anybody wanted to get a hold of you, really, what's the best way? They want to have a deeper conversation with you, just contact the foundation?
Yeah, you can, if you go on our webpage, you can contact us. You're welcome to always email me at Kaminsky, Kaminski at lbcc.edu. My cell phone's on my business card, and so I don't mind people contacting me. I talk to everybody, because you don't know where it's going to lead, and that proved true this past week. We had a couple conversations with folks, and something is emerging here that I think we'll speak more about down the road. But it could be an amazing partnership with a couple foundations and a couple other nonprofits that I think was just hatched over a
Yeah.
conversation. So
And no surprise there. I mean, just the last, what is it now? 28, almost 29 minutes we've been on this call. I have all these ideas. I'm like, wait, Paul, maybe can we explore this a little bit
yeah,
more?
yeah,
So, well, listen, it has been such a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure connecting with you, Paul. And before we let you go,
sure,
although I think, this whole conversation is really about the future focus, and where the foundation is really looking to make an impact and pave more pathways to have deeper conversations. But tell us about your vision for, what you want to see in the lives of those that are really being impacted by your work. The students, the
right,
local community. We're now in this process of, we're reopening a little differently than before 2020.
sure.
But what do you want to see as far as opportunities and changes in our communities?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we do or what we tend to do as institutions is we set up these things and we expect students to come find them,
Mm,
and so I think for me, it's really taking the resources to the students. How do we get them in their hands? Like when they come to campus, do they know everything that's available to them? And I would say right now, no. And so, talking with the school, it's getting better. How do we push out information to the students about what we have on all levels, scholarships, emergency funds, computer, whatever it is? And I think that is changing, and it needs to change, and it needs to, I always take it, it needs to come to their phone, it needs to be an app. What are all the resources? If I'm in a group, if I'm this person here, what do I have resources to? What can I,
right.
what's there to help? When I talk to students, our students are so humble and such amazing people every time I have a conversation with them, but a lot of them don't have the safety nets at home. They don't have the same support that I would say I did. And my parents didn't go to college, but I never had to worry about them being there to get me a resource if I needed it or whatever it
Mm,
was. And not everybody has that. And so we have to really think differently about, how we do mentorship, how we uh, speak to our students, where we meet them, where do we get them information at? I think it's, and the school's changing too, and we're all changing. And I think we just need to, man, keep going down that road, and
yeah.
surround our students with, if you look at our Hall of Fame and all the people that have come out of LBCC and how many great things they're doing,
Yeah.
and where our students are going right now after they transfer out of here,
Hmm.
it's amazing. It's an
Right.
amazing story, and those stories need to be continually retold.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, listen, it has been just again, I can't stop saying this because it's so true. An incredible pleasure to just engage with you over conversation, have you join our stories, our time. Again, P. Kaminsky at lbcc.edu. Is that right,
That is correct. Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah.
And the foundation has a very active social media platform, so please follow them there. Thank you, everybody. And Paul,
Yeah.
always grateful for your time. We'll
Thank
talk to
you.
you again soon.
Okay. Sounds good.